As startling revelations surface, Joni Lamb's life is collapsing. She has been pulled off Daystar's broadcast after years of devoted service, and the cause is more unexpected than anyone anticipated. Everyone is horrified by Joyce Meyer's betrayal. What took place behind closed doors? For what reason did Joyce Meyer and Joni clash, and what does this portend for Daystar's future? Find out the shocking truth regarding Joni Lamb's significant reputational decline by listening in. Many in the Christian media community were taken aback by the news that Joni Lamb had been sacked from Daystar. It was a surprise to everyone. The main driver of Daystar's expansion and success was Joni, who had served as its representative for many years. Everyone was taken aback by her abrupt departure and wondered how things had gotten so terrible. How could someone who dedicated her life to the network's objectives and helped establish it feel left out? The most dramatic moment was when Joni was fired. It took place shortly after she quickly remarried Dr. Doug Weiss, a Christian marital counselor and family friend. Many were taken aback by the marriage, particularly considering that she had only a few months prior lost her husband, Marcus Lamb. Regarding how quickly Joni moved on, the Christian community had differing opinions. While some questioned her motivations and emotional readiness, others saw it as a show of courage and will. Although Joni's private life was already attracting attention, this was something far more important. Since Joyce Meyer, a personal friend and well-respected member of the Christian community, brought the issue to light in private, the news of her termination came as a huge surprise. It was something far more severe than a personal dispute or quarrel. People wanted to know what was going on behind the scenes to bring about this abrupt change. After years of collaborating with Marcus to create Daystar, Joni abruptly disappeared. Everyone was curious as to why. How did it all go apart so quickly? What went wrong in the network that caused such a rift and led to her dismissal so quickly? The consequences were clear, but the specifics were still being worked out. This was more than just a personal disagreement between two people. It revealed deeper problems within Daystar. For many years, the network was seen as a model of Christian broadcasting, giving millions of people faith and hope. But now that Joni had been let go, the issues were showing. Once seemingly solid, the ministry's foundation was now crumbling. There were more questions than answers for Daystar's admirers and supporters. Was there something more going on behind the scenes that others were unaware of? Or was this just a personal dispute? As the narrative progressed, it became clear that Daystar was facing more serious issues than merely Joni's termination. The leadership of the network, which had always prioritized family, was now faced with a crucial choice. The future of Daystar is uncertain due to Joni Lamb's abrupt departure. Insiders, fans, and those with ties to the network were left wondering what this meant for the future of the organization. Was this the beginning of the end for the network that had once played a significant role in Christian television, or would Daystar be able to recover from this setback? Many in the Christian media community were taken aback by Joni Lamb's decision to get married again just a few months after her husband Marcus Lamb passed away. This relationship's rapid development sparked worries and a great deal of rumors and criticism. Both Joni's life and their joint work at Daystar Television Network were significantly impacted by Marcus. In addition to ending a marriage, his untimely death signaled a big shift for the network. Joni Lamb was appointed the network's counselor in 2015. Because she and Marcus have always been regarded as Daystar's heart and soul, this role bears her name. Now that she was in the spotlight, she had to deal with her husband's passing and the future of the network they had built together. Many people were supportive when Joni started talking candidly about her intentions to move on with her life. Grief is a complicated emotion, and it's hard to predict when someone will recover. But many were uncomfortable with the timing of her marriage to family, friend, and marriage counselor Doug Weiss. The connection developed rapidly, and shortly after Marcus's passing, Joni expressed her desire to wed Doug. The couple's decision to get married, though so soon, and apparently without adequate time to grieve, became a hot issue of discussion. The Christian community began to question Joni's emotional readiness. Grief is difficult and might take a long time, but it appeared that she hadn't completely processed the grief of that loss before beginning a new relationship, especially considering she had been married to Marcus for a long time. Many questioned if Joni was truly prepared for such a significant shift, or if she was merely attempting to fill Marcus's void. The new relationship seemed to blend personal and professional life, and it was more problematic because Doug was a family friend. Doug had been a member of the family and wasn't just someone Joni met after Marcus passed away. He was now assuming a role that many believed was inappropriate, given the circumstances. The speed of the relationship was the main source of concern for many. Given the emotional toll of losing her husband, Joni, who was always regarded as strong and devoted, seemed to be acting too quickly. The Christian society, of which Joni had long been a valued member, began to question her motives. Was this genuinely about letting go, or was it about evading the challenging grieving process? Some believed that rather than facing her loss head-on, Joni was attempting to evade it. Horrified people te cation soddered verals post-cation semester Neven beside Shuarkan spoded, is of Clufford St. Bacals. The worker friendly people to so friends, not Briao on Broadfield I've never wand. Joni seemed to be concentrating on a new chapter in her life rather than the melancholy and emotional healing that many anticipated from her voyage. More questions were raised by this. Was Joni trying to run away from her grief, or was she seeking solace from someone who might not be the ideal person to help her get well despite their concern? The Christian community began to examine Joni and Doug's relationship more closely as it grew, not just because of how fast their romance was progressing, but also because of the implications for Daystar. Since Joni had always been heavily involved in the network, some began to wonder if her leadership was being affected by the rapid changes in her personal life. Was her focus divided, or could she focus on Daystar's future? Her remarriage's timing and the changes at Daystar raised concerns about the network's leadership stability. Insiders and many spectators started to believe that Joni was more concerned with her personal life than with Daystar's goal. One centered on families, the ministry was undergoing a transformation. Some of Joni's close friends and co-workers began to believe that she was now more preoccupied with her new relationship and personal life than with the network she had laboriously built with Marcus. Daystar's leaders became divided as a result of this shift. Joni's vision now dominated what was once an environment where everyone's opinions were valued. People at Daystar began to doubt Joni's leadership style. Family, friends, and longtime employees started to notice that Joni was now the only one making decisions instead of the group. Some people felt disregarded because they believed that the power dynamic had shifted. This shift seemed to be reinforced by the bond between Joni and Doug, who is now actively involved in Daystar's operations. Despite his lack of a formal role, he seemed to gain power in the network quickly, and his engagement became a topic of conversation. Not everyone appreciated this new scenario, which felt like an unpleasant extension of Joni's power over the network. Doug and Joni maintained their relationship despite the criticism, saying they were doing what was best for their shared values and happiness. However, many people appeared to be going about their lives without giving much thought to how their actions would influence those around them. Once hailed as a representation of faith and dedication, Joni was now perceived by others as someone who was hurrying through life, ignoring the normal grieving process, and losing sight of her position as Daystar's leader. As the months passed, more issues arose due to the rapid development of Joni and Doug's relationship. Did Joni truly love Doug, or was she just attempting to spare herself the agony of losing Marcus? The answer wasn't immediately apparent, and as Joni and Doug went ahead with their plans, more individuals began to feel uncomfortable. There was still the question of whether Joni was making the correct decision for her work and personal life. People were uneasy about Joni's speedy remarriage, wondering if this new stage of her life demonstrated strength or hinted at more serious emotional issues. Ultimately, Daystar's leadership in Joni's personal life entered a new phase with her quick remarriage. Questions that went beyond her personal life were raised by the relationship's rapid tempo and the attention it received from the public and Daystar employees. It was obvious that this was about more than just Joni's grief and healing. It was about Daystar's future, its leaders, and its capacity to remain true to its mission. Joni's hasty marriage decision represented a more significant shift that would ultimately lead to major issues at Daystar. This would have an impact on the network she had helped build in the future, as well as her personal ties. The tension within Daystar was palpable. For many years, the network stood for solidarity, based on family, faith, and a shared desire to spread the gospel. The network was founded by Joni Lamb and her late husband, Marcus, with the intention of making it one of the largest Christian broadcasting networks globally. Daystar's success was a testament to their perseverance, faith, and family-like cooperation. However, after Marcus's untimely death, things began to shift. Daystar's tight-knit community started to disintegrate as long-hidden issues began to surface. The focal point of the growing tension was Joni. Joni was known for being a team-oriented leader before Marcus's passing. She and Marcus collaborated closely, making decisions together and ensuring that Daystar remained a ministry that appreciated everyone's opinions. However, Joni's leadership style began to shift with time. Working together was no longer the main goal. Control took precedence. Joni started making decisions on her own without consulting her family or the team. The network started to feel more like a business than a family endeavor. People who had been working with Marcus and Joni from the beginning began to feel excluded. The oneness that had once defined Daystar had given way to divisiveness. At first, this shift in leadership was not immediately apparent. Joni was now the only one making small decisions that previously required input from the leadership team. Employees began to see that the ministry's emphasis on teamwork was eroding as a more rigid leadership style took its place. While some began to feel uncomfortable with Joni's managerial style, others praised her drive and tenacity. The once open space where everyone may express their views suddenly seemed to be dominated by Joni's personal viewpoint. People who disagreed with her were starting to feel left out. Joni's second marriage to Doctor further exacerbated matters. Weiss Doug, despite not holding an official role within Daystar, Doug, a marriage counselor and family friend, swiftly rose to prominence. Some employees were taken aback by his rapid ascent in the company, and they began to question whether Joni was consolidating her authority by encircling herself with supporters of her ideas for Daystar's future, in addition to seizing control herself. Doug's involvement appeared to be a component of a larger network transformation. A smaller, more exclusive number of Joni-aligned individuals were now assuming control of the once cooperative leadership. The adjustments were difficult for many who had been with Daystar from the start. Longtime employees who had been involved in the network's inception began to feel alienated from their own company. Previously, decisions were made with extensive consultation and meticulous forethought, but today they were made swiftly and without seeking input. The tight-knit community that once characterized Daystar was now fragmented, with many individuals feeling disregarded. The conflicts were very personal in addition to being work-related. Jonathan Lamb, Joni's son, was ready for a more significant role in the network but ultimately disagreed with his mother. Jonathan learned how to be a leader and prepared to lead Daystar by working with Marcus and Joni for years. However, Jonathan began to feel that his contributions were no longer valued as Joni's influence over the network grew. He had been with the same organization for a long time, but he felt increasingly alienated from it. The mother and son's frustration grew, and it became clear that their relationship was having more difficulties than ever before. Jonathan's growing discontent was influenced by his personal life in addition to his professional decisions. He had worked beside his father for years, learning from him and feeling a great responsibility to continue his legacy. It was evident that Jonathan's position at Daystar was losing importance as Joni's influence grew. His thoughts on crucial choices were being disregarded, and his mother's vision for the network's future was being given precedence over his own. Andre, it was clear that they were at odds and the organization was suffering as a result. Power, loyalty, and the network's future were at the center of the Daystar dispute, which had evolved beyond simple economic decisions. The atmosphere at Daystar grew hostile as Joni's leadership became more focused. Formerly close staff members began to feel aloof about Joni and her family. They had no idea where the network was headed and were no longer involved in decision-making. With Joni in command and a small number of people surrounding her who supported her vision, Daystar's cooperation gave way to a more independent leadership style. The other employees, many of whom had been there from the beginning, felt marginalized. Many volunteers who had devoted their time and energy to the network also felt a growing frustration, in addition to the personnel. In the past, Daystar was a place where everyone's viewpoint mattered, but it suddenly felt as though the opinions of those who helped establish it were no longer important. The shift in leadership was causing a rift between those who favored Joni's new approach and those who thought the principles that made Daystar great were in jeopardy. The tension was only heightened by Joni's personal life, particularly her remarriage. Many questioned if Joni was truly prepared for such a significant decision given the relationship's timing, which occurred shortly after Marcus's passing. Some saw Joni's quick marriage as a show of strength and a means of moving forward in life. Others, on the other hand, saw it as an indication of instability, a decision made too quickly and without enough emotional healing. With Doug becoming more active in the network, the new relationship was now linked to Daystar's leadership, raising concerns about his influence and role. It was clear that something had to change at Daystar since the tension was rising. The future of Daystar became uncertain as the struggle for dominance grew both within the network and within the family. Once seen as a symbol of unity and power, Joni's leadership had turned into a source of animosity and strife. Once a representation of faith and hope, the network was now embroiled in a power war, with people's allegiances divided and Daystar's future unknown. Everyone in the Christian media was taken aback by Joyce Meyer's public condemnation of Joni Lamb, and the consequences were disastrous. Both women were committed to sharing the gospel through their ministries and had been close friends and collaborators for many years. Together, they established professions founded on service, faith, and a shared set of values. For many, their connection seemed unbreakable because it had endured difficult periods in both their personal and professional lives. But everything changed after Joyce Meyer chastised Joni's leadership. The outcomes were immediate and far-reaching. One of Joni's biggest supporters for years has been Joyce Meyer, who offered guidance and wisdom while Joni navigated the difficulties of running Daystar. They have shared many intimate moments and worked together on several projects both inside and outside the ministry. Joyce had been there for Joni through some of her darkest times, such as the death of her husband, Marcus Lamb. Based on mutual respect and a shared commitment to their values, the two women seemed to have a close bond. Tension started to subtly increase as Joni's personal life took precedence over her leadership role at Daystar. Their partnership started out with little adjustments. Joyce, who had always been frank, began to notice a shift in Joni. She observed that Joni's leadership style had changed, becoming more commanding and less collaborative. Joyce was among the many individuals in the company who started to feel alienated as Joni took more authority over Daystar. Once a forum for debate and collective decision-making, the ministry began to resemble a totalitarian regime. Joyce and others who had been with Daystar from the start started to feel their voices were being ignored. Once seen as a gregarious and team-oriented leader, Joni suddenly seems more intent on consolidating power and steering the network's course. Joyce, who had always admired Joni's dedication and leadership, began to worry more and more. Joyce wanted to speak with Joni alone about her concerns over Daystar's trajectory and Joni's evolving leadership style. Nevertheless, those initiatives encountered resistance. It appeared that Joni had lost interest in listening. Those who disagreed with her were disregarded as she focused on her own vision for the network. The distance between the two ladies widened as Joyce's concerns went unanswered. When Joyce Meyer publicly attacked Joni's leadership, it was a game-changer. It was not a secret private remark. The public was made aware of Joni's shifting priorities and leadership style. Joyce expressed her concerns regarding Daystar's destination in a direct and understandable manner. She accused Joni of prioritizing her own objectives over the principles that once made Daystar a representation of faith and optimism. Joyce was worried that Joni's focus on power was undermining the ministry's initial goal. Joyce feels that instead than concentrating on one person's desire for power, Daystar should prioritize faith, family, and serving others. This public censure was quite hurtful for Joni. She relied on Joyce, one of her closest friends, for support and guidance. She was shocked to hear Joyce openly admit that she had lost her way and was motivated by ambition and power. Joni's leadership at Daystar had built her career and reputation, and now someone she respected and trusted was casting doubt on that leadership. The impact of Joyce's remarks was immediately apparent, as they struck at the heart of Joni's goals. Joyce's public censure further exacerbated the problem. Fans and followers on both sides of the dispute shared their opinions on social media, turning what had begun as a private argument between friends into a public spectacle. Some backed Joni because they thought she was a strong, dedicated leader who was only carrying out her duties to keep Daystar operating. Others shared Joyce's belief that Joni had lost sight of the principles that made Daystar unique. The debate raged for weeks, and it was evident how divided the two women's followers were. As things progressed, it became clear that this was more than a personal dispute. Larger issues inside Daystar were exposed by the criticism of Joni's leadership. Once highly cohesive, the family ministry was now fragmented, and tensions between Joni and those who had been part from the beginning were growing. Numerous people had been turned off by Joni's decision to consolidate control and put her personal goals for Daystar first, and Joyce's public comments had made the network's flaws very evident.